Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. Here we are, Wednesday night, February 23rd, and prepared to speak a little bit more about emotional vampires. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes to start coming on so that we can have this conversation today. If you're on, let me know that you're able to see and hear me so that I could know that everything is working well here. Just so you could know from my end, it looks fine, but I can't tell from your end. I know that there are issues with some of the devices. Seems a little jumpy at times. I don't get that on my end here. When it's up later on and when it's up on YouTube, that probably won't happen. So it'll be up on YouTube tomorrow, at some point between tomorrow and Saturday. But if you're on, let me know that you are on, just so that I can know that you are here and greet me. Hope everybody's doing well. Hello, Zuma. Good to see you there. God bless you. So from my end, okay. Hey, Eileen. Good to see you. Can you hear me? All right, good. Eileen says all is well. Hey, Karen. Good to see you there. Vilma. God bless you. We'll give a couple of more seconds for people to start coming on, and we will continue with this lively conversation. Hey, Eliana. Good to see you there. We had a really good conversation last week, and the comments kept on going afterwards. So I love that. Yeah, absolutely, you can continue to uh, make comments. You can message me on Messenger, and of course, we will continue the conversation as far as we can, of course. But I hope everyone is doing well and that you are able to see me and hear me, as I said before. Hey, Eddie, good to have you there. So just a couple of more minutes, and we will begin. I posted a number of statements in the very beginning. Let me know if you can see those statements that I put there, and later on they can be shared again. Hey, Olga, God bless you. Susanna and George, God bless you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. There you go. Thank you, Jay, for posting. So he has everything there, and then later on, as we continue speaking, what happens with that is as we continue speaking, of course, it keeps on going further up. So periodically, like maybe every 10 or 15 minutes, you can just share it again, Jay or someone, so that everyone can continue to see it. Hey, Jenny, Eugene, Myrna, glad you guys are there. So I hope you guys have pen and paper ready. I mean, even though, of course, you can replay the video, but if you want to get something inside of you, you really have to write it down and reread it so that it can be internalized. So that's really important. So I'm glad everyone is here. Let's begin. So last week we were talking about emotional vampires, and as you well know, there were a number of you online. There was a lot of commentary, and it was good stuff, absolutely. But I want to remind everyone here that when we are online, of course, please don't put your personal information out there. This is not a place for your personal information. This is a place where we are discussing mental health. Now, of course, mental illness is going to come up. That's part of mental health, and that does occur with some of us, and that's okay. Now, what we also need to know is that your personal information pertains to you. If you post something like that, then you're opening the door for everyone to comment on your personal information. That's not what we're about. That's not what we want to do here. We want to keep this, well, I want to say professional, but also respectful, and so that everyone can feel comfortable here. So that's important. Eileen put their boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. Okay, there you go. Let's keep the boundaries firm here so that we're on the same page. That's important. So we spoke about emotional vampires last week, and we mentioned the antisocial vampire, histrionic, narcissistic, obsessive compulsive, and the paranoid. And of course, they all have a variety of characteristics. They perform in different ways. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give just a brief overview of what we spoke about, and then we're going to get into today how we can protect ourselves from emotional vampires. And that's really important. We have to be able to have a means of staying safe from these individuals who will bleed us dry. They'll suck us dry. In other words, they will drain us from our vitality. They bring us down. They get us tired. Of course, you know the title of the book, Emotional Vampires, dealing with people who drain you dry. And I put the title there at the beginning. And these are individuals that, for whatever reason, right? And we're not trying to get down on anybody. At some point, you and I can become or are emotional vampires also. And because of our lack of insight, we do not see where we do these things. So we have to be aware of that also. We're going to come to that in a little while. But these individuals in general are people who have needs and wants, but the way they go about seeking to have those needs met can be annoying. They can be tiring. They can drain, as we said before, the energy from those individuals that they work with. And very often they take a lot of a person's time. Now, your time is precious. My time is precious. Everyone's time is precious, right? We have a limited amount of time. And what we do with that time is very important. So we want to know that the people that we are either ministering to or working with or just hanging out with are also, we are going to benefit from their companionship as much as they benefit from our companionship. So we want to be, in general, on an equal stage here. We want to know that we can help, but we also want to know that we can be helped. And that's really, really important. One of the issues, and of course, we are speaking in generalities with emotional vampires, is that they want to receive and to receive and to receive, or put another way, they take. They also give. But whatever they give you, make sure, and you're going to know that everybody knows about the fact that they gave you something. And that's something that we have to realize. Sometimes you and I are going to be dealing with individuals who will let the world know about what they did for you, but they will not let the world know about what you did for them. That's part of being an emotional vampire. But as I just said a few minutes ago, you and I can sometimes fall into that category. So we have to be very careful about minimizing the needs of these individuals, the wants of these individuals, and remembering who we are, right? We have to, as the scripture says, we also can fall into temptation. So we have to be very careful about when we're passing judgment upon somebody else and the things that we have done in our lives and how we would measure up in here and the categories that I mentioned last week and that we'll speak about today. So to begin, emotional vampires, and this is again an overview from last week, are threatened by boredom, uncertainty, accountability, and having to give as well as receive. So already we see some issues that they are working through. They're very easily bored. They need to move from task to task constantly. Now that's dangerous when we're speaking about relationships with individuals, right? Because we don't do those things. You stay with the person with whom you began, generally speaking, of course. They don't like uncertainty, so they want to know that they know that they know that they know. Careful with that. There's some things we simply do not know. They have a problem with accountability. When you call them to task, they disappear because they can't deal with that. And they have a problem with giving, but they have no problem with receiving. They are just like children with it's an all about me mentality. It's about what they can receive rather than what they can give. Very opposite from how many of us want to live our lives. They are the center of their world and have a difficult time revolving around anyone else. So it's all about them, of course, generally speaking. So how do we protect ourselves from emotional vampires? I gave you the characteristics last week. We spoke a little bit about how they function, or the ones that we did mention. There's a lot more in the book if you would like to get the book. Really good book. But how do we defend ourselves from these individuals? And how do we prevent ourselves from becoming just like these individuals? So these are some things we have to keep in mind. Yeah, Jay says, it always feels like they only call on you when they need something. Why would they call on you for any other reason, Jay? Come on. isn't that part of the issue? And we, you, Jay, and myself and others, because we are the way we are, we will respond to that call and we will give help. Our problem is that we have to then be careful about developing a bitter spirit. If we don't want the help to help the individual, then you and I and all of us here need to know how to set the limits and the boundaries with those individuals that ask and ask and ask and ask. When you ask, they're never available. Something always comes up, right? So again, that's about us. About us sometimes needing to be needed. So we have to be very careful about that also. So again, we can become emotional vampires even in ministry if we're not very careful with how we conduct ourselves and even the boundaries that we impose on ourselves. You always, if you're available 24/7, at some point that's going to bite you, because you have a family to maintain and you have other things to do. You know, Jesus could raise the dead. You and I cannot raise the dead. We simply cannot. Can God raise the dead today? Absolutely. I believe that the Lord can do anything today that he did in the scriptures before. I haven't seen any dead being raised. What does that mean? All that means is that, again, if there's an individual in your life that is constantly bringing you down, minimizing the things that you do, taking from you, and then when you are unavailable, moving away from you, and then when you have something that they want, they're romancing you and coming back, that is an emotional vampire. Does that not sound like something that you and I may have done in our past, or maybe even doing now? That suave, smooth person that can basically get there and do things, and they're just so good looking that you want to serve them. And what do? Eventually, you give so much that you have nothing left to give in terms of mental health resources, or you're just tired. So, question here: has anybody here been faced with this type of individual and had to then draw a boundary? Now, remember, no names. But if you want to share that, go right ahead. What has been your experience with an emotional vampire? Now, you can't write an essay there. You got to do something brief. What has been your experience in your life with emotional vampires, if at all? Maybe not. I think I hear those fingers just typing away there. Just giving you a moment to reply to that question. What has been your experience with emotional vampires? And it's possible that it was an experience that woke you up, and maybe you can say, wow, you know what? I went through this situation, and now I am more intelligent in my relationships because of that. And of course, I don't want you to say something that you can't say. You don't have to stress that. Yeah, I know it gets personal. So like I said before, we don't want personal stuff there. We're speaking in generalities here. But while you type that, let's get into some of the ways that you can keep yourself safe. Okay, Eileen says my experience was draining and hurtful. Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem, that you give and you give and you give. You know, whatever the situation was, and you find that you have given so much that you have no resources left for yourself, or for your family, or other individuals. Jay says, yes, I had to walk away from a longtime friend for a season because he was just taking advantage of my help and time. Finally, after about 2 years, he has realized that he was mostly taking. Very good. Very good. And I hope you had something to do with him realizing that he was mostly taking. Um, Mimi, how are you? Good to see you there. She says it was very stressful. Absolutely. Oh, Melody, I'm glad you said that. She says, I am just recognizing the characteristics and haven't done anything. Yes, I will need to address it now that I know. That's excellent. Do you know that sometimes these are individuals that are very close to us, and we don't see because of our love and our commitment to the relationship or our desire to be helpful. We don't realize that we're actually hurting the individual by not correcting their behavior. We have to understand that also, that sometimes we foster this negative relationship because not just because of our needs, but also because we're not trying to hurt somebody else. But in the long run, we eventually are hurting them and ourselves because another person that they do this to, they might not be as nice as you. So they learned from you that it was okay to do it. So you got to work on that. Karen says it's difficult to draw boundaries with someone like this once you've said yes. Oh, yeah, that's very true. Because it becomes what they expect. And when you start saying no, you're painted as the bad guy to many. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, of course, when you are beginning in a relationship, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, it could just be a friendship. When you are beginning in a friendship, you don't know that individual. So sometimes you go a little overboard to help them. And then when you realize what's happening, that's when you have to say, oh, I got to pull back a little bit now. I can't be available all the time. Jenny says, at times we have to put our foot down and stay strong. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Yes, Jay says, I had a serious and blunt talk, and it has helped with the process. That's exactly what has to happen. There has to be a very serious and blunt talk. Feelings have to be let out, and the reality of the situation has to be spoken about to maintain the friendship also. Yeah, Susanna says, my experience was exhausting. Yeah, it is. These experiences are absolutely exhausting. They take the life out of you. You feel drained, tired, like you say, exhausted, just unable even to help somebody else because of what happened with a different individual. But that's not what we should do. What we need to do is begin to realize where we have allowed this to continue and then change the way we deal with other people. Oh, okay. Someone by the name of Mother Wildflower Seeds, I love that, said, it left me with psychological noise that I am still sorting out. I love the way you put that. Absolutely. Our brains can only take so much before, poof, we just explode. But we don't even know that we're exploding. And we get irritated with other individuals because of this different individuals. Okay, Enid, now I know your name. That's important to say. Yes, we are affected. And remember, we're talking about mental health. So we're taking back our mental health from these emotional vampires that will drain us. Now, please understand, you're not taking back your love. You're not taking back your care. You're not taking back the responsibility that you have towards this individual as your neighbor, as your friend, as your brother, as your sister, as your mother, as your father, as a person that you relate to in your job. You're not taking those things away. You're letting them know, I value you so much that I am not going to allow you to hurt yourself in this way, and I am not going to allow you to hurt me in this way. Now, that's a different kind of conversation, excuse me, which we need to have. So, I posted 10 things that I want to go over, and of course, because it is 10 things, we'll just go over each one briefly. I wrote them down in the chat in the very beginning. If someone could share them again. Yeah, Sasha says, I'll venture to say that setting these boundaries is loving them. Absolutely. Absolutely. Think about why laws are written. Laws are generally written because something went wrong and now a boundary has to be set so somebody doesn't get hurt. Jenny says sometimes these vampires just think they're always right. Yeah, absolutely. That's how they are. And you and I continue to make them think that way because we give in to some things. Oh, there's one of my Nyack says, "Hey Barrington, God bless you. Good to see you there. I love your singing, man." He says it's also very good to recognize our own needs because sometimes we encourage such behaviors based on the need to be needed. Oh, that's for real. That's for real. Sometimes we are in ministry because we need to be ministered to by ministering to others, not recognizing our blind spots. So we need to wake up to that also, but that's okay. We don't need to stop ministering because of that, but we do need to wake up to the fact that I love to do this, but I have this issue or this issue or this situation or that situation going on. It doesn't have to be a super negative thing. We all need to be needed. That's for real. That's a real thing. We all like to be loved. We enjoy getting along with other individuals, and some of us get into ministry because we like serving. That's really important. We don't have to say that our serving is a negative thing, except when we now stop doing what we need to be doing because someone else's needs are so great. No, then you have to begin to pull back. Let's say, for example, you're part of a church family. If you're part of a church family, and we all should be part of a church family, then different members of that church family have different capacities or gifts or abilities. And what happens? Well, they can serve in different areas. You don't have to do it all. Sasha mentions the savior complex. Absolutely, there's some people who they want to they want to save and save and save and save. Who are they saving? They're really saving themselves, and so we have to be very careful about that. So the 10 things that I mentioned before, they're posted up there somewhere. You can refer to them. Number one, when you're dealing with emotional vampires, you have to know them, know their history, and your goal. This is a problem when you and I jump into relationships and we don't know what the person is about. Well, Dima, this is what I'm going to speak about now. And with alcoholics, it's a little bit different. So you might have to do a little bit of research in that area. But some of this might apply. Know them, their history, and know your goal. What does that mean? Anticipate vampires by knowing how they've acted in the past. Now, how do you know how a person has acted in the past? Well, first of all, when you are meeting a person for the first time, usually what draws you in is their look or their sound, their walk. There's something about them that draws you in. Okay, good. That's a good thing. That's all external. How do you get a little bit deeper? Well, we have a number of ways of doing that. Number one, there's prayer. You can ask God. Number two, if you have other people in common, you need to see how they conduct themselves around those other individuals. What have their previous relationships been like? I mean, I would hope that at this juncture, in the way this world is functioning, that none of us is jumping into relationships without asking questions. That's really important. So try to find out how these individuals have acted in the past. Don't assume. Don't assume anything. Don't assume anything. And the author says, a big mistake you can make with them is assuming, without evidence, that although their record has been bad in the past, they have learned their lesson and will do better this time. That is possible. There is repentance. There is change. They can make amends. They can make their life better. That absolutely can happen. However, we're going to go back to the savior complex that Sasha mentioned. We cannot save anybody. So be very careful, especially those individuals that feel drawn to people who are incarcerated or in other situations. Be very careful about those types of things. You know why? And God bless them all. we want restitution, and that they are restored in general. But I have seen a number of situations where the person is drawn to this type of individual, and that type of individual has learned to play the game of life in such a way that they will draw you in, take all that they can, and then they'll drop you. So you got to be very careful about that. That happens in ministry, that happens in relationships, that happens in jobs, that happens in a number of places. So be very careful. Know them. Get to know them. Know a little bit of their history. And what is your goal? What are you looking for? How we have to be careful to avoid becoming emotional vampires. We have to be careful of our own needs and our own wants, because we will paint it as if we're helping when we're looking for something a little bit different. So be aware of yourself. That's okay. You are human. You have desires. You're attracted to people. So you got to be careful about that kind of thing. That was number one. Number two, and it's related to number one, get outside verification. You know, wherever you go now, right? They ask you for your vaccine card, right? They're asking you to verify that you are vaccinated. Well, you're going to have to ask these people for some verification. Now, what does that mean? What that means is they want you to listen to them alone. What happens there? If you listen to them alone, now this is their opportunity to control you, because you're only listening to them. They're going to try to isolate you. This is how domestic violence relationships often begin. It begins with, I love you so much. You really can't be with anybody else. You need to stay with me. No, I don't want you to go out tonight. And on and on and on and on. And before long, your world revolves only around that individual. And everybody's noticing this, but you have now, we're going to come down later to this, you have become so hypnotized. You're in a trance because the vampire now got you. And you don't now you don't even recognize what is happening to you. So be very careful about that kind of thing. So get outside verification. They're going to try to isolate you. Don't do that. Check out what they say with a trusted friend. And especially when you'd rather not do it, that is the time when you need to do it. Because now you may be letting your emotions override your intelligence. Be very careful about that. Remember, as the author says, vampires can't operate in the light of day. For your own mental health, you need to be aware about where that person is coming from. Oh, I love what Jay says. Be careful of the person with the perpetual apology. It's a tactic that is used often. Oh, absolutely. Number three, do what they don't do. What is that? Well, to prevail over an emotional vampire, the author says you must rush in where they fear to tread. What is that? Your greatest strengths lie in doing the things you can do that vampires can't. What does that mean? Seek simplicity and peace. The vampire is going to try to embroil you in all kinds of drama, right? Remember the histrionic vampire? It's all about them. It's all about the noise. It's all about the show. Don't get drawn into that. Don't do that. Don't fall for it. In churches, we'll fall for, oh, this person does this ministry, and this person does that ministry, and that person does that other ministry. Wow, that's incredible. What a man. What a woman. Stop. Be very careful about that kind of thing. What we need to recognize is the power of God truly in that person's life. Do they demonstrate holiness? Do they demonstrate self-control? Do they demonstrate peace? Do they demonstrate patience? Are they demonstrating those things? You should check them out. So do what they don't. Seek simplicity and peace. Stop playing in the vampire's yard. You're never going to win in the vampire's yard. It just doesn't happen. Because once they draw you into their territory, now you're lost. Now you need some help. Number 4. Pay attention, and as I'm speaking, you guys can just write there. Pay attention to actions, not words. You know the old saying, right? Words are cheap, and they certainly are. What vampires say is often different from what they do. I put here, the proof is in the pudding. What does that mean? Hey, Let them prove the reality of change or repentance. Karen put it in Spanish there. Por sus frutos los conoceréis. You're going to know them by their fruit, right? A good tree can't give bad fruit. A bad tree can't give good fruit. It just can't happen. That's a law of nature, right? We spoke about nature a couple of weeks ago. The laws that just simply don't change. This is the reality. With an emotional vampire, you got to pay attention to what they do, not what they say. Why? Because what they say is fantastic. They can talk a great game, but they can't play one. And this is where we get caught up. Yeah, Jay says sometimes a liar is just a liar. Yeah, that's it, right? You don't have to keep looking. That's it. It's four-letter word right there. But what's our problem? And it's not a terrible problem. We always are looking for the good in people. We should look for the good in people, but really we should be looking for the Jesus in people, not for the good in people. And that's the mistake that we make. What we need to understand is that all of us are a work in progress, right? The Bible says that we are masterpieces. Yeah. That's the end product. Right now, we are a work in progress. So even though you and I, the Bible says we're seated in Jesus in the heavenlies right now, but right now I'm seated in this chair right here, and you're seated wherever you're seated. So there's the reality of being up there, and there's the reality of being down here, and sometimes the two have to meet, and where they meet might be the issue. So we got to wake up to this kind of thing. So again, pay attention to the actions, not to the words. Anybody can say anything. And then if you're not a good fact checker, guess what? You just got taken. So be very careful about that kind of thing. Number 5, and then we'll pause. Identify hypnotic strategy. What does that mean? Vampires are consummate hypnotists. They will put you under a spell. They're that good. Now, also, be very well aware of the things that you and I do that sometimes can seem that way also. When you see through the smoke and mirrors, their illusions don't work nearly so well. So what does that mean? You have to cut through the nonsense, through the smoke. It says through the smoke and the mirrors, as the author says. What does that mean? The person's talking to you about. I'll give you a simple example. So you loaned somebody money, and it's not the first time or the second time or the third time. You feel bad. You continue to do it. But I'm gonna get a job. Yeah, I'm gonna get a job. Yeah, I'm gonna get a job. Yeah, I'm gonna get a job. I'm like, whoa, I will not lend you any more money until you get a job. Now, that's not so much an emotional vampire. That's the behavior of an individual that has grown accustomed to that kind of lifestyle. But what I'm telling you is that they will hypnotize you with their talk, labia, right? They got good lip. They're able to just go on and on and on and on and on. Before you know, and you're divesting your wallet of funds to give to them for them to spend in whatever way they spend. So we have to wake up to that kind of thing. We have to be aware when this individual is pulling us in, they're drawing us in, and then you say, oh, whoa, I almost fell for that. And you wake up. So here's a question for you guys. I mentioned 5 things here. Know them, their history, your goal, what are you seeking? Get outside verification, do what they don't do, pay attention to actions, not words, and identify their hypnotic strategy. Identify the things that they are doing. What do you think, apart from what I've mentioned here, are other ways of recognizing an emotional vampire? In your experience, how can you recognize a person who's trying to pull you in to their spell, into their domain, to take away from you certain things? It might be your time, it might be your money, it might be your love. Can you recognize them? And how do you recognize them if you have had to deal with this before? So questions out there. I think I hear you guys clicking on your on your phones. How do you or how have you recognized an emotional vampire in your life when that has come up? And if you haven't, what was the result? What happened? How did you end the relationship? Or don't tell me if you are in the relationship. Be careful with that. And then after that, we're going to go to the next five. Okay. Eileen says, I have recognized them based on experience, how they treat others and history. That's good. You got to see how people treat other people. Jay says they all they always seem to be in the middle of every controversy. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Eileen also says, I have kept my distance. Yeah, sometimes we have to keep our distance, and sometimes we have to lovingly confront because we're going to keep other people safe that way. So it depends on your role wherever you're at. Ah, Annette says, they always cry wolf. That's good. That's a good one. Yeah. They and that's a really good way for them to be able to pull you in a different direction, which is what we have to be careful of. They're going to try to keep us off balance at all times. And Jenny says, let me see, jumped up. Okay, at this age, I can read a person and then I just stay away. Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing to know. Esther says, vampires o vampiros reconocen que son vampiros. Yeah, so is that basically that means that they recognize that they are vampires. Maybe, maybe not. I think that in general they know that they are taking from individuals, but they haven't been confronted with that enough for them to stop. And that's one of the problems. Enid says, I listen to the wording in speech. For example, if they speak mainly in the me, my, mine, and I, yes, then see if they walk if they walk their talk. That's good. Very, very good. It's always going to be about me, 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 me. That's exactly how they live their lives. Jay says, after a while, they have the same tell, like a poker player. Yeah, that makes sense. Karen says, drama follows them wherever they go or they create it. They're always the victim. They love to compliment a little too much. Oh, that's good. They'll pull you in with compliments. Hmm. Oh, Sasha says a good one. Paying attention to how you feel while engaging with an individual. Oh, yeah. Sometimes your flags go up as you're speaking to this person. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, violated, or cornered by their life situations that are always emergencies, or if I feel consistently drained after meeting, it's definitely a red flag. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, of course, all of us go through down times. That's to be expected. But when there's never an up time, no, that's a problem. That really is a problem. So very good. Thank you guys for that. We're gonna come to the next five. When you're dealing with an emotional vampire, and remember, as I said before, we have to be careful about not becoming that individual also by the way we speak and act. Something else you have to do is you have to pick your battles. You have to be able to pick your battles. To be an effective vampire fighter, you must be able to pick the important battles and ignore the rest. You also must avoid fighting battles you can't possibly win. Some conversations you just should not have. That's important. Oh, Nancy says something really, really good. Most vampires stay away from people who can read them and call them to accountability. Oh, that's a biggie. Absolutely. They seek people who are weak, needy, and vulnerable. Absolutely. And this is the issue. You and I, at some point, can be weak, needy, and vulnerable, and we could fall for that. That's why we need to stay prayed up, but also aware. Dima says, love them from from the distance. Keep it moving. Where are we? Okay, pick your battles. There are many choices in relationships. Focus on what is most important. What is most important? We're talking about mental health. If you're going to get into a relationship where your mental health is being diminished, you need to run away. Now, I'm not talking about marriage. Marriage is a commitment, and it's something that you should never enter into lightly. But once you're in, and you should stay in. That's my belief as a Christian, and that is what the Bible lets me know. Now, I'll clarify that. If you're being abused, well, then it might be time to step out of that relationship. But that's on a case-per-case basis. So what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about those relationships that you don't need to be in, that you can walk away from. Barrington tells us they may come in different colors, but the behaviors are the same right across. Yes, I set boundaries with them verbally and by actions. Never respond to every request. That's excellent. You cannot be available 24/7. But as you said, it's important to confront the behavior because sometimes they may not be aware that they are vampires. That's important. Eugene tells us in Spanish, los vampiros emocionales son chameleónico. So he's saying that like chameleons. Absolutely, that's good. They'll change their colors according to the branch they're on. So you need to be awake to that also. They know how to read us. So we need to be awake. Yeah. Thank you, Sasha. They are chameleons. Cutest little lizard. You won't see it if it's right next to you. So we have to be aware. We have to open up our eyes. So pick your battles. That means that, as I said before, there are many choices in relationships. Focus on what is most important. Then the next thing is let contingencies do the work. What does that mean? A contingency is simply this. It is an if-then situations. If I do this, then this happens, right? Cause and effect. You do something and there's a consequence. So the way emotional vampires learn is by experiencing the consequences of their own behavior. If you are forever saving somebody from their bad behavior, then you're not doing the right thing. That is not the right thing to do. Sometimes you need to let people suffer the consequences of their behavior. And that is going to be the only way that they learn. If you're tempted to rescue them, think about what you're teaching them about how the game of life is played. When you're not available to them, now they're really more hurt because at one point you did everything for them. So stop that. People got to wake up. People got to get moving. People got to get jobs. People got to do whatever needs to get done to live life in this world. And when you and I prevent them from doing those things, don't think you're helping them. Not at all. You're actually making them more of an emotional vampire for the next person that comes. Stop saving them. But you also stop asking to be saved. As far as I know, can only be saved by Jesus. That's it. And when we continually get ourselves into situations where we need other people to rescue us, well, that smacks of immaturity and inability to learn from our experiences. And that's just a negative way of living our lives. At some point, you have to be able to say, hey, I'm going to take responsibility for myself. Yeah, Susanna says that's the way they learn. That is absolutely the way they learn. Adults need to mature. That's the bottom line. Adults need to make mature decisions and they need to be able to take care for themselves if they are mentally whole. And that's really important. Choose your word. Next one is choose your words as carefully as you pick your battles. Yeah, Henry said something good. Don't give them the fish, teach them how to fish. That's okay. You can give them the fish the first time, but after that, you got to tell them, hey, this is where the fish are at. Here's the rod. Go get the fish. Annette says that's tough love. Well, you know what? I've thought about tough love, and I think that's just love, not even tough love. I think it's just love. That you love an individual so much that you give them the skills and the abilities and the teaching that they're able to do things on their own. That's just love. So again, choose your words as carefully as you pick your battles. With emotional vampires, what you say, how it's said, and when you say it are crucial to the outcomes you are likely to achieve. What does that mean? You have to be able, as Jay said earlier, to sometimes be blunt with some of these individuals for their safety and for your safety. Make no promises and then ask questions for clarification. Yeah, Jay says it again. The lumps of life are sometimes needed to correct behavior. They sure, and I got a lot. Absolutely. We will often learn more from our defeats than from our victories, right? As has been said in the past, we learn a lot more in the valley than we do on the mountaintop. The mountaintop is when you're praising God and you're lost in worship and nothing else exists. And then you tumble down the mountaintop to the valley. And in the valley, there's skirmishes, there's battles, you're tired, you're bloody, and you win all these, you go through all these situations, you win all these battles, and you climb back up to the mountaintop. You rest. Praise God up there, and you tumble back down to the valley. That's life. That's real life. So don't take it as a negative. Take it as growth experiences. Number 9, ignore tantrums. Huh. Ignore tantrums. Now listen to this. Most of us have had children. That baby, when they were a month old, 2 months old, 3 months old, 4 months old, you know what? They weren't having a tantrum. They were absolutely dependent upon you or I. We had to feed them. We had to change them. We had to bathe them. We had to tickle them and laugh with them and be with them, right? The comfort of the parent. That's not a tantrum. That's being available to a little creature that has all these needs, and basically you are everything to that person. When they become 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and they're tantruming and you're responding to the tantrum by giving in to them, you are now developing a child that will never learn limits. They're going to have problems in school. They're going to have problems in their jobs. They're going to have problems throughout their lives because in their formative years, you did not teach them what you should have taught them. There was no limit. There was no boundary. There was no respect. And they're going to think that they can do that with everybody in society. That's not going to work. So parents, you have young kids, you need to wake up. So we're still on number 9 here. Ignore tantrums. When vampires don't get their way, they throw tantrums. They can explode into all sorts of emotional outbursts whose only purpose is to get you to give in. Once you give in, you're wrapped around their fingers. And it's going to be very difficult to get out of that. So wake up. Make childish behavior should be avoided on both sides, on your side and on their side. Jay says this, going back to the previous point, they hate questions. That he says that's a red flag I depend on. Absolutely. And he says, I hate the term, you are not being fair from adults. Yeah, absolutely. We have to be very careful about that also. Sometimes that does occur. Olga tells us you need to walk away. All they want is attention. Very often. Very often. Once you get drawn into their world and you did not walk away, you basically lost. So you got to wake up from that. And number 10, know your limits. We have to know when we can go no further with a particular individual. Know your limits. Dealing with emotional vampires requires effort. They may be worth it or not. I'm not talking about salvation here. Don't get it wrong. As my friend Patterson says, don't get it twisted. They may be worth all the time you're giving them, or they may not be worth all the time you're giving them. Yeah, that sounds horrible, right? This is the reality of life. There are other people in your life that might need the same amount of time or more than that person who has been wallowing in self-pity for the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and doing nothing with their life. So sometimes you have to say, I love you. Hope you're doing well. I have somebody else that I need to help. If you want to come and help me help them, come on down. You can help also. But at some point, you have to basically say, this is done. I need to do something else. So you must decide if they're worth the effort or not worth the effort. Now, I'm not talking about salvation. Yeah, you go all out to bring someone to the Lord, but you're not the one doing the saving. You got to keep that in mind. Sometimes it's better to run away or not get involved in the first place. And that is one of the hardest things. Maybe you should not have gotten involved in the first place. Now, if you're already deep, well, I gave you a bunch of things here in terms of what you can do in setting limits. But it is up to you to begin setting those limits. Remember this, if your mental resources are taxed, you may need to back away. You know why? Because if they're draining your mental resources dry, you know what's going to follow, right? Your bank account, your credit card, your car, your home. What else are you going to give them? And you end up with nothing for them to end up saying, wow, you never did anything for me. This is so real. We need to wake up also as to why we fall into these type of relationships. Examine yourself. Do you need to be needed? This is how we began. Do you need to be needed? Now, to a certain extent, all of us want to be helpful, and we want to be seen, and we want to help in such a way that a person's life is changed. But it cannot be that you give so much of yourself that there's nothing left. So we got to wake up to that also. Remember, you're not saving anybody. Now, that brings us back to something that we spoke about, and we're going to come to a conclusion here soon, on the book of Jude. If you have your Bibles, you can go to the book of Jude. It's only one chapter. It's at the end of the Bible. So you go to Revelation, and you go back, 3rd John, 2nd John, 1st John, and there's the book of Jude. Henry says, if you always want to be like, sell ice cream. That's not enough. You got to give it away free, man. You can't sell it. Yes, Eliana gives us a good point here. Trust that they don't need you and they can grow without you. Set your limits and allow them their process. Yes, and this is our problem, that we want to be part of their process. Yes, your part was giving them maybe some information and then stepping back and allowing them to thrive on their own. I like what someone said, that you could lay down so somebody could walk on you, and somebody's going to complain that you're not flat enough. So what do? You cannot be everything to everyone. You simply can't. Book of Jude. We stopped last week on verse 19. Now we're going to go up to verse 20, and we're going to come to a couple of verses there. We are told by Jude here, but you, verse 20, build yourselves up. Now this is important. Build yourselves up. How? Founded or grounded on your belief. And then the Amplified Version say, make progress. Rise like an edifice or like a building going higher and higher. How? By praying in the Holy Spirit. In other words, you are grounded in spiritual things. We're going to speak about spiritual things in another class in March, but grounded in spiritual things. And then he goes on, guard and keep yourselves in the love of God, yourself in the love of God, expect and patiently wait for the mercy of God, for the return of Jesus, was going to bring you life eternal. But then he goes on in verse 22 and refute. What does that mean? Refute means when you tell somebody you are not speaking the truth, refute or convict some of those who dispute with you. What does that mean? These individuals that we are working with, we have to bring them to a knowledge of the truth. And when we cater to lies, we also now become liars. I don't want to be that. We are not called to be liars. We are called to be truth tellers. And those individuals in our lives that we can help in that way, we need to help in that way. So refute, so they get convicted, some of those who are fighting with you, and some of them have mercy because they're wavering and they're doubting. Remember, last week, you got to refer to last week's class when we spoke about these people being emotional vampires. Verse 23, strive to save others, snatching them out of the fire. But on others, take pity with fear, loathing, meaning hating, even the clothes that are spotted, that are sullied by the flesh and polluted by their sensuality. Whoa. What are we being told here? That you and I have the task of working with some of these individuals, but not being drawn into their world, pulling them out of their world and bringing them to a saving knowledge of who God is. The only way you and I can do that is by living the life that pleases God in all aspects. That's a hefty proposition. That's what we are called to do. Sasha reminds us, I'm going a little bit back here, we can turn into a vampire if we are depleted of our own ability to be happy, free, positive, and whole. Absolutely. That absolutely can happen. Why? Because it's not a matter of giving too much. We have been given so we can give. But what happens is when your resources are depleted, as you just mentioned, what occurs? You got to stop at some point so that your tank can be filled. When you don't stop and allow your tank to be filled, you become bitter, you become tired, and even the people that you are working with, you begin to no longer want to be around them. And some of them have real needs. Not everybody's an emotional vampire. So we need to understand here that all of us can suffer from this malady. We can all become emotional vampires if we're not very careful. Oh, I love how Eliana says it. As you go into the pit to help individuals like this, keep one hand on the ladder. That's lovely. That's real. Now, in a counseling perspective, we are going to go down deep into some areas. You know, I have had some confessions, things that I'm like, ooh, do I really want to hear this? I have no choice. Fine. And there are other people here, I'm sure you've heard some incredible things. You can't let that navigate into your spirit. That is why you need to be prepared to work with these individuals without being affected negatively by these individuals. At the same time, it says it right here, strive to save others, snatching them out of the fire. So we are called to help individuals that have developed this type of lifestyle and pulling them out of this lifestyle of being an emotional vampire. And then we also have to be very careful about caring for ourselves, that we would be safe. Oh, there's my friend Nancy. Oh, she says, you're speaking about me. I was too nice because I had very low self-esteem. Nancy, you know, I love you. You're a lovely person. And whenever you want to meet again, we certainly can meet. But what you need to understand, and everybody here needs to understand, is that all of us can fall into this if we are not careful. And this is why we need to be grounded and we need to be safe. We need to gather with individuals who are like-minded, who are prepared to serve, but at the same time are prepared to receive. You can't give what you don't got. So we need to know that our experiences, your experiences, Nancy, and the experiences of other people here should be used to help other people who are suffering. And I know you certainly can do that because you can speak well. So to close here, we need to be safe. We need to understand that emotional vampires are all around us, but they can also be inside of us. We can become that individual that latches on to another person and drains them dry. And we need to avoid that. I gave you some of the things that can be done here. You can refer to the book. But also, you need to make a decision that maybe some changes need to be made in your life so that you can help others. So please, any last comments or questions? And we're going to call it a night. Next week, we will continue, and we are going to be speaking about getting over grief and losses. And that I shouldn't have said it like that, getting over. Sometimes we can't get over, but we're going to speak about that next week, about grief and loss, recovering from the losses of life. So that'll be next week. But please, questions or comments now, and we will call it a night. Okay, well, Henry asked a good question. What to do for self-care? We're actually going to speak more about that next week. So we'll go there. But simple things. You got to eat right. You got to get rest. You got to exercise. And you got to be together with individuals who are going to pick you up, not knock you down. Those are just some simple things. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of thank yous. You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. We'll meet again here next week. Same place, same channel. Gonna have a good time. Again, we're gonna be talking about recovering from the losses of life, grief, other losses. It's not always just grief. There's many other things that hurt us. Failed relationships, job losses, all of those things. Jay says, a good steak is always good. Hey, you know I'm available for that. Anytime. All of you you're very welcome. I pray that you are strengthened in the Lord. Be safe. Careful with the emotional vampires out there. Don't be an emotional vampire. Know your limits. Know where you're at. Know your needs and know your wants. There's nothing wrong with that. But be available, but also pull back as necessary. God bless you all. Please share and like. Later on tomorrow or in the week, this will be up on Open Door Ministries YouTube channel, and you can share and comment and so on as you please. God bless you all. Have a good night.